The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Hello, and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
And that's how I got into Juilliard. That is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him. I didn't really get into Juilliard, though, you know.
Yeah,
it's just something I said.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course. But it's a big part of your identity, even though it's not actually true.
Exactly. I only started saying it after I met a world-famous actor. And we became friends.
So if that didn't give it away, this week we're talking about Frankenstein's monster, Frankenstein.
Amazing. What an amazing title.
Oh, it's so good.
Like, this short, it's, 32 minutes long, is the dumbest smart thing I've ever watched. Or maybe
it really is.
Dumb thing I've ever watched.
Yeah, I remember I watched it like right when it came out, and it was not at all what I expected, and I was like, I don't know if I liked that or not, and I never really went back to it, but like, going back to it now, I because I think I knew what I was getting into, I appreciate it a lot more, and I think also having, watched a bunch of Frankenstein movies back to back for the past, year and a half, really kind of like set me up to appreciate what was going on in this.
It's so good. Okay, so here's my question. Like, before we go into the whole review part, I need to know this, because I feel like this was inspired by The Terror of Frankenstein by Tim Kirk.
Yeah, I mean, there's some similarities. It definitely feels like the Frankenstein play that's going on in this is from the same era as the original Terror of Frankenstein.
Right.
It also kind of reminded me of the Dan Curtis one, because it was kind of like low budget, stage show sets and everything.
Right. So it's like, did they know before we knew that we were going to be doing this? Because like, or are we following in their path? What's going on here?
Yeah.
Oh no. But like you said, there's a lot of anachronism, to say the least, in that it's set somewhere in the 60s, 70s, 80s, possibly early 90s, but probably not. Probably before the 90s.
Yeah, I would say, 60s and 70s, especially because they talk about that, like, he did, that his dad did all the like stage plays, and that they were like dying out, and he tried to do one last one. So
right. Well, also though, like, I don't want to spoil too much, but David Harbour's dad is a clear homage to Orson Welles.
Oh,
right.
Yes.
I mean, there's a hard line, especially in the advertisements that come later.
Absolutely.
But like, so that's like later. Orson Welles is pretty much 80s.
Yeah, true. Like the Transformers era.
Exactly. Well, not only that, but Miss Macbeth, or as I like to call her, Lady Macbeth, the actress. What's her name? Monica. The real actress's name, Monica. The real fake actress. Anyway,
yeah, the point it gets very confusing.
Right. The point is, she's wearing something clearly out of the 80s with 80s hair, even though everything else is firmly like, this is film grain that came out of the 70s, the style is like out of those later Hammer horror movies that like... Yeah. I don't know. I enjoyed this way more than I should have.
talking about like that they kind of predicted us. I had forgotten how much the Chekhov's gun thing was a part of this, and we've been making these Chekhov's gun jokes.
Chekhov's guns and ammo. Holy shit!
Oh man, yeah. All right, you want to get into it?
Let's party. Let's do this thing.
So we start off, and as you said, like David Harbour's the star of this, but he's sort of the star of this twice over because he's playing a version of himself, and then he's also playing his father, but David Harbour Jr.
Right? Yeah, he's David Harbour III, and his father, who is this movie is basically about, is Junior. But it's a dynasty, right? There have been more David Harbours than we've known about, because we even get a picture of the David Harbour the First, presumably. And he's like an old-timey actor from the golden age of Hollywood.
Yeah, and so he's kind of talking about this whole family dynasty, and that his father kind of made his name with these like TV-produced plays that that was a big part of like golden age of television. Specifically, like we talked about that Dan Curtis thing that was on like a CBS Playhouse originally. That kind of thing. And so he'd been doing those, and like times were changing, and he decided to do one last play, and it was Frankenstein. And David Harbour wants to know what drew his dad to do Frankenstein as his last TV play.
Right. He even mentions that there's some inherent family madness, as he was quote unquote battling rats while in his mother's attic, and he stumbled upon this information.
Yeah.
In this film reel.
So then we get into, this thing, it kind of hops between like present day with our David Harbour and this televised play, from the past. So
and we get some shots of just David Harbour Jr. with random things, like he's on the front of a stage and he just goes, and that's how I got into Juilliard.
Yeah. And so, we start with him like, he is discussing the gun on the table and discussing Chekhov's gun as a play concept. We literally have a gun in this play, and we're talking about the concept of having guns in plays and what that means.
Right.
So,
and it is a literal Chekhov's gun from the Chekhov's gun store and ammo.
Yeah. So there's like a doctor that comes in and tells this young man that his mom is dying, and then
the worst actress, like the actual actress, has to be amazing because she did such a good job at making it awful.
Yeah, it's very clunky, so she's telling this guy that his mom is dying, and she just says it and then leaves like completely emotionless, like it's a very strange, like no bedside manner or anything. And then another woman comes in, and this is the Miss Macbeth, and she talks to this young man and says that she wants to see Frankenstein, or she wants to see his creation.
Right, because he's Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah, he's like, you want to see Frankenstein? And she's like, no, you're Frankenstein. I want to see your monster. And he's like, oh yeah, that's a common mistake. People get me and the monster mixed up all the time.
Right, it goes by my name, basically, right?
Yeah, so we're playing with that whole thing, and she's like, that's a common mistake for you? It's your name. And he's like, well, I get used to it. But so you want to meet Frankenstein? I mean, my monster.
Right, hey, something's going on with this. What's up with that?
Yeah.
This guy's a terrible actor.
And so then we see David Harbour, or David Harbour Jr., in a lab, like kind of grunting and groaning. Presumably, this is Frankenstein's monster. And then we go back upstairs, and we see that that Lady Macbeth is alone now in the little. It's like a living room parlor kind of area, and a ship captain just bursts into the room. Like this is very
Alfred Molina, nonetheless. Like a pretty big actor.
Yeah, he's in like 2 scenes in this, and it's just it's ridiculous.
They're the best scenes though. Well, really though, he's in a lot more than just 2, because there's a whole subplot about him.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He's in 2 scenes in the play, and then he's got another thing that's fantastic. Yeah,
right. He's like a very dramatic ship captain. He's like what is it? He says, the rains are coming in, and it's time that we be going.
And he says something about that he likes storms, that he enjoys them. and then he leaves, and we get the first little instance of every time anybody leaves the house, they shut the door, and then the door swings back open because it's a poorly made set.
Right.
Like, the door never latches closed. So as he leaves, then David Harbour Jr. comes stumbling in, acting like a monster, grunting, and scares her.
He's very, very monotone, or as I like to say, monster tone. All right. And that's it. I'm out.
So then our young, Frankenstein rushes in, tells her to run away, and that the creature's not been socialized yet, and that he'll handle things.
I fucking love that the monster, I don't know if you've heard those quotes enough in everything we've been saying about Frankenstein the monster, is like, oh, here's the gun. And she's like, oh no, he's going to grab the gun. Oh, it's so amazing.
Yeah. And so she leaves, since he tells her to escape. Then we find out. So now that she's gone, we've just got the monster and Frankenstein here. And it's revealed that actually our monster, our David Harbour Jr., is Victor Frankenstein. And the guy who we thought was Victor Frankenstein is just like a friend of his named Sal.
Sal, right? Who has a definite New York accent.
Yeah.
And he just drops his fancy English accent at that moment. By the way, so I guess at this point, he truly is Frankenstein's monster's monster, Frankenstein. Okay, right. Sorry about that.
No, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the title is definitely a good hint to tell you that they're going to be playing with who's the monster, who's Frankenstein, is Frankenstein a monster, is the monster a monster. It's very confusing, right? Intentionally so, right?
And there's a few spin-offs that turns out that maybe somebody else is a monster other than Frankenstein / David Harbour Jr. But yeah, but he's basically just talking to Sal like he's like, hey, listen, you got to say this, you got to say that, make sure you stick to the script. Very interesting phrase you said there, buddy. But as soon as he's going through this explanation of what Sal is to do, Macbeth opens the door, and he immediately goes,
Yeah. Macbeth is like, well, the captain left me, so I'm going to have to spend the night.
Oh, no.
And then the play goes to commercial, and we are back with present day David Harbour, and he's talking about his father, and specifically he's talking about that to get in the right headspace to do all of this, to dig into his dad's past, he has perfectly recreated his father's office, every detail exactly the way it was, including Chekhov's gun on the desk.
Right, and he even notes that what made his father so good at acting also made him a terrible father. So what does the dad do? That's crazy.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so then we meet Nancy Ehrlich, who was the producer of the play. She's played by Mary Warrenoff, who we've seen once or twice in something else. She's just, B-movie royalty. So she's kind of talking about working on the play and that there was a rivalry between Harbour Jr. and Joey Vallejo, the actor playing Sal.
Yeah. But they needed each other.
Yeah. Basically, Joey was a young heartthrob, and Harbour was kind of at the tail end of his career. He was an old man at that point, and resented being shown up by this young new kid on the block, basically.
Right, but he once again, like you said, just as much as Joey needed Harbour Jr. to show him the ropes, Harbour Jr. needed Joey to stay relevant.
Yeah, and he definitely resented that.
Right, and we get a smash cut to an old MTV VJ interview with Harbour Jr. And he's like, and she's like, what's one piece of advice you'd give a starting actor? And he's like, well, I really have 3. Enunciate, enunciate, enunciate. So that's just one piece of That's just one piece, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, like, he's clearly, like, he's a blowhard.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's interesting here, you know, talking about, like, Joey being, like, the young heartthrob that we've got, you know, Harbour being interviewed on this teen show. And it almost feels like he wouldn't let Joey be interviewed by this show. And so, like, you got this, like you said, this, like, young girl VJ who's, like, more interested in Joey than she is in Harbour.
Mm-hmm. Well, like, she even mentions that it's wild that they wouldn't let Joey be there, I think is what they say. He's like, yeah, it's wild that you'd want to focus on Joey.
Yeah, he's not interested. Like, she wants to know about Joey, and Harbour is not interested in talking about Joey.
Yeah.
We go back to the play, and Sal is talking about, like, he's worried about trying to fool Miss Macbeth.
Yeah, he's not an actor, is what he says.
Yeah. And, like, the whole thing is that they're trying to fool her because they're trying to get a grant from the university that she works for. And I think, you know, so we have the Chekhov's gun thing, which is also, you know, obviously, like, a big part of, like, dramatic rules or whatever. But then we also have, they keep saying Macbeth over and over again in this play.
Right.
And
that's
that's like that's like a superstition that you don't say Macbeth on the stage because it's bad luck.
Right.
And so it's kind of obviously that's the intent there, that they're like poking fun at that.
Yeah, I mean, they can't just go around calling her the Scottish lady, right?
Right. So yeah, when Sal says that he's not an actor, so this is where, like, it starts to get really blurry, because Frankenstein starts going into this rant of acting advice for Sal, but it's really more Harbour giving Joey Vallejo acting advice in the middle of this televised play.
Right, he's basically like, yes, you're not an actor, because actors do this, that, and the other. Yeah, on live TV.
Yeah, and it's funny because earlier, you know, when he was telling Sal to stop deviating from the script, he was like, only I'm allowed to improvise. And clearly this is one of those moments where he's decided he's going to improvise. You can tell Joey/Sal is very confused and doesn't know how to respond to this because it's not part of the script.
Right. Well, yeah, Joey's like, he's like visibly uncomfortable. He's like, oh man.
And like Harbour gets so into it that like the end of his like rant is, you know, again, and that's how I got into Juilliard. And then he realizes, oh shit, I'm in a play. I'm Frankenstein right now. I'm not David Harbour. And he's like, I mean, well, but I actually decided to go into science instead.
Right. Oh, more ad-libbing, damn it. Anyway, so after that, we're immediately brought kind of back to the present with Bobby Fox, a.k.a. a very classic That Guy actor, Michael Lerner. Do you know Michael Lerner, what all he's been in?
Yeah, he's like the dad in like so many things, right? Like,
oh, yeah. Yeah, he's in a lot of stuff. If you watch Tales of the Mummy, he plays Professor Marcus. He was in Godzilla. He was the mayor of New York.
Gotcha. In the American one.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the awful one. Sorry. Right. I mean, you know, depends what you're blank check for all of you '90s kids.
Okay, that's probably what I would remember him from, like growing up.
You know what I actually remember him from? I remember him from Maniac Cop 2.
Okay.
He was the deputy commissioner in that one.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who gets to play like cops and politicians a lot. He's a senator in one of the X-Men movies, I think.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like he's a person of authority that like is always out of their depth.
Right.
And he plays that role really well, so good for him. But now he's the agent of David Harbour Jr.
Mm-hmm. So Harbour's talking to him about, you know, his dad's past and stuff, and they get to this point where like they're talking about like he had a little bit of dirt under his fingernails, sort of metaphorical dirt, you know, like that he'd been up to no good.
Yeah, and if you keep digging, you might get your fingernails removed.
Yeah.
Harbour III's like, wait, are you threatening to torture me? He's like, yeah, maybe not, no.
And he just kind of laughs it off.
Yeah.
And then we cut back to the play again. You know, we're still in the whole play takes place in this one room, right? But right now, all of the the cast we've met, they're not in the room. We've just got a little girl who is dancing around the room and keeps getting dangerously close to Chekhov's gun.
Right. So close that Macbeth actually calls out, "Watch out, the gun!" And the girl's like, I don't care about the gun. What about the gun? And then as she walks off, she literally gives a visible, like, a cringe. Like, I don't know if she's like, I did a bad job, or this was an awful scene.
Yeah, with the way that this goes, like, it feels like that's probably intentional.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, they even take a still of that later in the movie, so, yeah.
At that point, like, Frankenstein comes, or Sal/Frankenstein comes back out and is talking to Macbeth. She's like, I want to know more about what you're doing. I feel like I'm wasting my life behind the desk. I want to kind of get out and see the world. And Sal thinks that she is, like, hitting on him. Right. And he's like, I want that too. And starts kissing on her. And she's like, whoa, I just want to do science, my man. Yeah. And so then at that point, there's like over in the corner, there's like a spiral staircase leading up, up to a second level.
Chekhov staircase, if you will.
And this woman comes stumbling down the stairs, and she is Frankenstein's mom, who we know is dying. And she's like out of it, and Sal is like, "Mom, get back upstairs," and she's like, "You're not my son," and he's like, "Oh, she's not well. Don't listen to her."
Right. He's pushing her up the steps at this point, and the actress is like lazily lying on the steps. She's singing, moaning.
Yeah.
Really weird, but it's a choice that she made. And then just randomly she shouts out, "Oh, I love morphine."
Yeah, and so he does finally get her back upstairs with the actual Frankenstein's help. He kind of runs in, while Macbeth is looking away, and helps, like, get his mom back upstairs.
Right. The most opportune. I'm going to look away for a long time at this horrible scene, from this horrible scene. And then we cut back to the present, and to help everyone remember his father, David Harbour III has made his dad's famous chili for everyone.
Yeah. And he's like, I hope that the chili will spark some memories. So he gives a bowl of it to the agent, and he starts eating it, and he's like, I remember.
He's like, yes. I remember.
And then at that point, we cut right back to the play. Now we have Macbeth going down to the lab. So there is that 1 second little set, and she is talking to who she thinks is the monster, but, of course, is actually Victor.
Right. She says it's refreshing to maybe talk to someone who doesn't fully understand what I'm going through. That condescension.
Yeah. She's like, I wanted to work with Victor, but he made a cheap pass at me. And all I really want was just to study you and maybe make you a steady girlfriend.
A mate. A bride. Nah.
And then they just kiss.
Right. They kiss so passionately. Wait, is this where they kiss passionately? Yep. Oh, yeah, and they knock over the beaker.
Yeah. And then the kiss devolves into another discussion of acting.
Well, before that, though, like, when they knock over the beaker, we immediately cut to the little cousin playing with a doll under the stairs. And it's like, we'll be right back.
Because he says something about acting, and then they end up on the slab, and they start, like, it looks like they're going to have sex, and then that's when it goes, we'll be right back, and we get our actual commercial break where we get to see the commercials.
Yeah, we get our sponsors. We get the Juilliard School of Drama. Okay, that's cool. We and it literally says, "How will you get into Juilliard?"
Right.
That's a through line. Okay, and then we get another advertisement for Chekhov's Guns and Ammo, and something that I don't know why I immediately was like, "Is this an Orson Welles reference?" Even though it has nothing to do with what he actually advertised, but it was London, USA beef.
Right.
It's like a restaurant or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a British pub steakhouse in America, but is what it appears to be, at least.
Right, because they do beef Wellington, and that's purely British, right?
Yeah. And so we don't get to see ads for Juilliard and Chekhov's Guns and Ammo, but we do get to see this ad for London, USA. And yeah, it is, David, like you said, it's David Harbour doing an Orson Welles impression. If you've seen any of those old, like...
The Paul Masson wine.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah. Those outtakes are so good. Do yourself a favor. Look those up if you get a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. It's worth a trip to YouTube to check some of those out. So then we cut from the commercials back to the present, and now the agent is talking about problems with the production. He says, they spent too much money. Harbour was obsessed with Aubrey Fields. They had to hire him for a part.
Because Aubrey Fields is one of the best actors in the whole world, right?
Yeah, and this is the ship captain / Alfred Molina. But in the world of this story, he also is the host of a show called The Actor's Trunk.
Okay, what is this based on? Because I swear to God, I've seen this from, on PBS.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is like the James Lipton thing, but no, there is something more that does literally have prop stuff like this. I don't know specifically what it's called, but I'm with you. I definitely have seen this.
That's what Inside the Actor's Studio or something like that.
Yeah, there's the way that James Lipton is, his gravitas when he interviews people. There's definitely some of that in here as well.
Right.
But yeah, we at that point we see some clips of David Harbour Jr. on the Actor's Trunk show. And so the premise of the show is that the host, Aubrey Fields, has a big kind of steamer trunk that he puts some random objects in, and then they put an actor out on stage who then has to go through and improvise little scenes using whatever junk he finds in this trunk.
These are very these are some highlights to me. I really enjoyed them.
Yeah, they're. I can't. Do we see all of? He gets he pulls out a tennis racket, right, and play it he's it could be a snowshoe, or it could be a ukulele,
or it could be a face mask. And it's revealed at this time that is literally when he started saying, "And that's how I got into Juilliard."
Right. And the agent is but in actuality, he did not go to Juilliard.
Whoa. But David Harbour III is pretty damn sure that he went to Juilliard.
Yeah, he was that was my dad's whole identity. He never stopped talking about Juilliard.
And now we're introduced to a brand new character, the dramaturge, who's literally nope, your dad never went to Juilliard.
Yeah. Okay. There's just this guy in the corner behind a little typewriter or something. And they're yeah, basically that was the problem. He said this and it wasn't true, and then he had to stick to this lie his whole life, and he was just racked with guilt about it.
He was racked with so much guilt that he began to overeat at London, USA.
Right. And he needed more money for the production because of hiring Aubrey Fields, so he started working with Chekhov's Guns and Ammo, even though they had some shady mob ties.
Yeah, they're just a racket for the mob. They're just money laundering, that's all.
And due to all of this chaos, his marriage was on the rocks.
Right, and at this point we are then informed that, Nancy just is well, I was fucking him too. And then Bobby was yeah, you and everybody else. So implying that Bobby had also had sex with David's dad.
Yeah.
I mean.
And David's no, my parents were fine. And the dramaturge guy's nope, the records here show whatever marriage he was in during this time. Was that your mom, or was that a different lady? Because it was definitely on the rocks.
No, that was definitely my mom. And the dramaturge is I'm not sure about that, but okay. Not legally, at least.
Right. Yeah, so, Harbour the Third's world is coming crashing down at this point. He's learning all kinds of shocking information about his dad.
Everything he knew was a lie.
Yeah. At that point, Monica Fulton, the actress who plays Miss Macbeth, appears in the present, in the, David Harbour III's little office.
Right. They did nothing to disguise her. She looks exactly the same as she does in the play.
Yeah. She is not aged at all.
At this point, I'm wait, is there some shenanigans? Because I think at some point, David Harbour mentions some dark, sinister forces, and it's oh, is she a vampire? Are we gonna get actual vampires?
Yeah, there's no explanation for it, but it's definitely an intentional thing.
Yeah.
Then we get a clip of her on the Actor's Trunk,
Where Melina puts in a frying pan. That's not sexist.
Yeah, I definitely feel like this is intentionally sexist. And she like gets it out and does this whole where she's like, honey, breakfast is almost ready, come down. And then I cry because I realize that he's not coming down because he's dead.
Yeah, right. Explaining her choices, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's acting.
Right, just spelling everything out for the audience and not actually showing it.
I literally was like, is this Chekhov's pan? Is this actually going to come back? No, I was just being hopeful.
Then we cut back to the present, and Harbour's like, it's good to see you, Monica, but can you give us a minute? And she's like, sure. And it's like super awkward. He was basically kicking her out of the room, and she's like, I know when I'm not needed. And
right, I may have mistimed my entrance, but I will surely not mistime my exit.
So at that point, we cut back to the play. Sal is walking in on Frankenstein and Macbeth on the couch in the living room now.
Like presumably they've had the sexy times.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because they're like laying on top of each other, and Sal comes strolling in, and Frankenstein's like, Sal, and Miss Macbeth's like, wait, why'd you call him Sal? What's going on?
Yeah, and he says something kind of interesting in that I don't like lies or secrets. I don't like secrets.
Yeah.
It's weird because that's all he's been doing, but okay.
Right.
Should we give a content warning? Is this technically sexual assault by omission?
Yeah, I mean...
Because he was portraying himself as someone else.
Yeah, because she's consenting to have sex with the monster, not Victor Frankenstein.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not the best move for sure.
Yeah.
And in fact, like, he tells her everything at that point, and she's like, well, I'll be filing a report about this at the university. So she's upset by this. So, there definitely is a sense that, like, I did not consent to what just happened.
Right. And immediately the doctor's like, your mother has died.
And she also is like, and unfortunately, there's no cure for death.
Right? And if there were, it would make the world a little bit less rich. I don't know if I agree with that, ma'am.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that people always say, that, like, mortality is what makes us appreciate life. But, like, yeah, if I could cure death, I would 100%.
Right? It's like, or we could just stop existential dread. I don't know.
Yeah. And, obviously this is, like, hitting the point of Frankenstein over the head a little bit here. Like, Sal is trying to be an actor, and he's like, oh no, my mother. Which, of course, at this point, everybody knows it's not his mother.
Right. David's kind of like, why are you crying? Why are you crying?
Yeah, and then, in fact, we cut back to the present, and, the agent is like, yeah, that really pissed Harbour off when he started crying, because crying was his thing.
Yeah, the crying detective, actually.
Yeah, there's been a poster behind them this whole time of, like, one of Harbour's previous works, and yeah, it's The Crying Detective, which apparently was, like, his most famous work, his claim to fame. And we, in fact, get a little clip from The Crying Detective at that point.
Right, he's literally crying in a therapist's office when he figures out the crime.
Right. And so then we cut back to the play, and Harbour, at this point, not Frankenstein, but Harbour Jr. is yelling at Joey on stage and is like, you can't cry. He says, that's acting, sucker, and punches a hole in the wall of the set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so at that point, the ship captain just appears from a secret passage, and he's been in the house this whole time.
Right. He just pops in and he's like, oh, it's very beautiful outside. Not a drop of rain. The sun's shining. It's almost like he's trying to diffuse the weirdness, but making it more weird.
Yeah, I think this is Aubrey Fields trying to interject the sea captain back into the play to get things back on track, which would explain why he's coming from the secret passage, because he's really just coming from backstage, Yeah. But Miss Macbeth is like, I want to stay. I don't want to go, because, like, it's the captain is like, it's time to go. I'll take you back to land. And she's like, I want to stay with you, and I won't turn you in, Victor. This could work. Like, we could maybe have something here. Right.
Well, Sal / Joey is not having it because he wants answers, and he pulls the Chekhov's gun.
Yeah. And so he's waving it around, yelling and making a scene. And then in the present tense, we've got Harbour, who is talking. He's like, I'm trying to figure out what happened. There's more to this story that I didn't know. So to figure it out, I hired a forensic accountant and a detective.
Right, they just pop in out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
We find out that they've done all this investigation and they didn't know about the Juilliard thing.
Right, and he's like, well, maybe there's more that you don't know. Maybe you don't know about how my father killed Joey Vallejo, And that immediately cuts to several different interview clips of Harbour being like, man, I sure wish that Joey Vallejo was dead. The best way to kill him is to cut his brakes.
It's so easy to do.
Right.
But the detectives are like, no, his alibi actually checks out.
Yeah, so he didn't kill him, but, your dad was a piece of shit.
Right. And so at that point, Harbour III is angry. He picks up the Chekhov's gun off of the desk, and he's waving it around, yelling. Mm-hmm. So we cut back to the play, which has now devolved into not really the play anymore, because we've just got Harbour yelling at the cameras that he needs to make an announcement that Joey Vallejo ad-libbed without permission, so they're taking away the rest of his lines.
Right? Well, how childish. I'm going to take my ball and run, right?
Yeah.
So you upstage me, thus you can't be in my play anymore.
Yeah. Then he just starts giving they're like, now we're on a different set. Like, this is like the final act. They're like on a cliff face or yeah.
And so he talks about, he doesn't show us. We've never seen the monster, but he talks about how he created the life. It was in his own image. It was beautiful, brilliant. He could do everything better in every way. Kind of like if I had a younger person that was exactly like me but better. Weird to think about that. Okay.
Yeah, which is, this is Joey, but this is also David Harbour III.
Right.
And there's just like, yeah, it's everything is like collapsing in on itself in a really bizarre way.
Just an ouroboros of fuckery, right?
Right. And then he says, but, my creation began to behave erratically, and I feared for my life, and I had to shoot him. And I lost my best friend that day.
Yeah, he was such a gentle soul, he even befriended a small crab in a tide pool. What? Okay.
And so then Sal is like, wait, you shot Frankenstein? And Victor is like, I had no choice. And then Monica's like, what do you mean? You're Frankenstein. And he's like, it's a common mistake. I stopped correcting people years ago.
Right, but wait, what if you are Frankenstein?
Right. So, Miss Macbeth is like, at this point, either Frankenstein killed the monster or the monster killed Frankenstein and is now impersonating him. But either way, we need to restrain this guy until we figure out, who is who and who's dead and what's going on here.
Macbeth is like, I will perform a test on him to find out who he really is. And I think he even calls her you're the real monster, Macbeth.
Right. Which Lady Macbeth was kind of the monster of the play Macbeth, so there's that there too. He tries to run away, and Sal pulls out the gun and fires it at the escaping whoever this right. Harbour Jr. is playing, but instead he accidentally shoots the niece.
Who gets carried in by Aubrey. Yeah, gets carried in by Aubrey in the most amazing way ever. Like, she's just laying in his arms, like, with her tongue out, and he's just like, oh, you shot your niece. Oh, no.
Yeah, and like this is definitely like some Maria from the original Frankenstein vibes. But yeah, they specifically only ever call her the niece, which is really funny. And so then Sal is all upset that he has killed this girl. Then we have this weird sort of like montagey scene where Sal, filled with regret, puts Chekhov's gun to his head. Right. Then we have Victor Frankenstein / the creature putting a gun to his head. Right. And then we have David Harbour Jr. the third putting the gun to his head in the office. And then it's the same gun. This is the gun that Harbour got from his dad's office. So like, this is sort of like happening at the same time at various moments in time with the same gun.
And it goes.
It's
Chekhov's gun does go off. 3 times.
Right. And then we cut back to the present. We've got Harbour III, and he's like, my father was a monster.
Okay, by the way, he's been standing by this, at certain points he's standing by this fake fireplace, and he throws in the files on his father. No fire whatsoever. You hear crackling and popping.
Yes, it's so good.
I'm like, what the hell? This is amazing.
There's not even a fake fire. It's literally just a mantle with like a fireplace that's nothing's lit there, and it's there's no back to it. Like you can it's just just a facade of a fireplace, and then the crackling.
Yeah, what is it? The ADR.
Foley work.
Yeah, Foley work. Yeah, amazing.
And then Harbour just like looks right into the camera, and he's like, so he'd said my father was a monster, and then he says, but in the coming years, I'll present him in the best possible light.
Dun, dun, dun.
And then we cut to credits featuring a bunch of London, USA bloopers that are straight up like the Orson Welles ones we were talking about.
Yeah, the Paul Masson ads.
Yeah.
This is shit. Why do I have to drink this piss? Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
Oh, and he finishes by, and that's how I got into Juilliard.
Right, of course.
You know what's funny? We literally spent more time talking about the movie than it would to watch the movie.
Yeah, this movie, it's quick, it is like 32 minutes, but it's so weird and convoluted that there's a lot to get into in it. And I feel like if you really, really wanted to spend the time, you could analyze the hell out of this in the way that the layers of the nesting doll of how this movie is built.
Right. It's psychotic, but it's actually a masterclass in acting or storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a parody of Frankenstein that clearly loves Frankenstein. It's a parody of the theater and acting in general, but by people who are all actors and clearly love their craft. Yeah. It's the kind of thing that nobody can poke fun at the thing you love like you can. If somebody else is making fun of something you like, it's fuck you. But I can make fun of the shitty movies I like because I like them. That's. And that's what this feels like, is that sort of the loving, mockery that you get from people who care about something.
Yeah, truly. And the whole culture surrounding those late 70s, early 80s TV televised plays.
It's a lot of fun. It's very bizarre. There's nothing else quite like this.
No. And you know what's weird? Don't get me wrong, Netflix sucks right now. So, if you can find it another way, watch it another way. I don't think you can unless it's, someone has downloaded it somewhere. But it's still, really fun.
Mm-hmm. And it's from that time when, Netflix was sort of letting people do weird stuff. They were just, throwing money at creators who wanted to try something a little different. And, there's no way this would have ever been made maybe Adult Swim maybe might have done it, during, the Too Many Cooks era of Adult Swim. But, outside of that, I can't imagine anybody bankrolling this other than Netflix.
Right. Oh, yeah. No way at all. But it's also, it's so crazy how good it is for what it is. Yeah,
it really what it feels like is this was during when Stranger Things was just getting huge, and I'm sure David Harbour is I have this kind of interesting idea, and they're if you want to, we'll whatever you want, here's money. Yeah. This
was when David Harbour is still a bankable actor, but it was he's the next action hero, and it's not so much. He's a good actor.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, it's this as when we talked at Addie Side, she said talked about the book and saying that it's by a Frankenstein stan for Frankenstein stans. Yeah. That feels like this as well.
100%.
If you've been watching along with us all this time, then everything about this is really just gonna hit home for you.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, where can they find us, Anthony?
Yeah, so, you can find us on all the socials at the Frankencast. Whatever. Right now, really, it's Twitter and Instagram are the big ones, but, whatever shakes out as being the one we all move to at some point will be there at that address.
Right.
We're also at Reddit, the _Frankencast. You can email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com. And you can always find us over at patreon.com/thefrankencast.
Ah, wonderful. All right. So, Anthony, I think next week we ought to... we've kind of been dragging along, huh? I think we've been spending so much time in the Frankenwarp, we might want to do the Time Warp.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've been doing some kind of weird campy stuff, and it doesn't get any weirder or campier than Rocky Horror Picture Show. So it's time. This has been like we need to do this for a while, and the time has come. I
mean, can we say this is technically like Halloween in March? Listen, if you're a Frankenstein fan, I guess Halloween's all year long.
Yeah. But yeah, this is the classic weirdo musical extravaganza that has inspired midnight showings around the globe for decades. We're finally going to get into it. We'll throw some stuff at our computer screens and
right. Yeah. Will we be pushing hot dogs around on our desktops? What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
so join us next week for what is sure to be a very weird episode.
Yep, 100%. All right. Well, in that case, to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.
The flappy crab that is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him. All right, that's the first one.